experienced. But the fact of the matter is that, my definition of God is reality. And my definition of an angel is a characteristic that persists to express itself longer than life lives, longer than a single human being lives, or any type of life, longer than any form lives in time and space, you know? These characteristics, you know, I feel persistently have expressed themselves in the actual evidence that we have in the present, looking through observation and deduction, through the scientific method, looking at the evidence left, and using math, using the most rational, persistent, objective ideas possible to describe reality. You know what I'm saying? How reality got to be, how we all get to experience this thing that we all have in common. And even though each of us experiences it a little bit differently, the fact of the matter is that we all can basically agree we're all sharing in a common being. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, when somebody says to me, I don't believe in God, that to me means nothing to me. You know, it's like saying, I don't believe in me, or I don't believe you exist, or I don't believe, you know, reality is God. You know, there is no other option. You know what I'm saying? I'm not creating your experience, and no one that I have ever seen is creating my experience. The closest thing I can get to as far as someone creating my experience is my own body. And if my body is responsible for creating all this experience I'm having, well, God bless it. You know what I'm saying? All I see is my community and the world we all share. And the evidence that the world we all share has been here a lot longer than any of us have been alive. And the language that we all share, all the ways in which we communicate with each other, is also older than any of us have ever been alive. You know what I'm saying? Basically, a lot of people feel that it's important to be skeptical in life. It's important not to believe in just anything. You got to believe in the truth, and everything else you can dismiss. I don't follow that logic. I don't know how I can dismiss anything. I'm skeptical because I recognize my own ignorance. I have many times believed something was the truth, and what I thought was a lie ended up becoming true. And I can easily see waking up tomorrow morning and finding out everything I believe is actually turned around and upside down. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't surprise me if it happened. I'm not expecting it. I'm not going to speculate on the fact that anything's going to change, because shit hasn't changed in a long time. But it wouldn't surprise me. You know what I'm saying? Based on my ignorance of what a lie is, I have to accept everything as being the truth. However, there are different types of truths. There are truths that accurately describe what will happen if you take a certain action in reality, what are the most probable outcomes. And when I say probable, it means that even the simplest Newtonian experiment that's been reproduced a whole 100 times and always gets the same outcome could get a different outcome simply because of a mistake, right? You know what I'm saying? You know, so it isn't like it accurately always tells you the outcome. It just tells you the outcome if you have all of the set parameters, and reality does what it usually does. You know what I'm saying? And reality is persistent. Reality is consistent. It definitely has laws. Those laws have no police. There's no one to enforce those laws. There's no one who writes those laws. Those laws are built into the characteristics of the energies we are made of. You know what I'm saying? We try to set laws for each other because we want to have control over each other. We try to dismiss one another by saying that person is lying. When our beloved president, Trump, gets up and tells bold-faced lies, I recognize that they're not lies. They're the truth. He's telling his truth. The issue is whether you are going to take that truth, put it into context, recognize the whole history of humanity, and basically do all the work to recognize the nuances of the truth he's saying, and how much of those nuances are based on his personal and cultural and identity-based goals and values. You know what I'm saying? If you recognize all that, yeah, you could say he's lying, but if you recognize all of that, you know, in fact, he's telling you the truth about who he is and what he's about. You know what I'm saying? There's no such thing as a liar. A liar just tries to manipulate information to get their goal, regardless of the nature of the outcome. That's not lying. That's just another speculator. And you just factor in their goals. You know what I'm saying? Basically, evidence-based facts, to me, could just as much be a lie as anything else. However, evidence-based facts are persistent. They're consistent. You can see the evidence of them in the present by doing, whether you call it archaeology or just a flow chart. You can see how one thing leads to another thing leads to another thing in the present, and recognize that these things have been doing that in the past, leaving the same evidence. A person dies now, 5 years later, you find their bones. You recognize their bones were once them. They used their bones to live. So when you go and see something that looks like bones, but it's not an animal you've ever seen before, you got to assume that animal existed sometime in the past. And when you recognize that that animal is housed in dirt and other objects that must have laid down with them, when, you know what I'm saying? I mean, this stuff is just straight reality teaching. Now, whether reality is teaching us a lie or not, since all we have is reality, we might as well acknowledge that truth. But that doesn't mean you don't acknowledge the truth of the Bible, you don't acknowledge the truth of Buddha, you don't acknowledge the truth of any tradition. In fact, that means that you have to acknowledge the truth of all those traditions. Because all those traditions are once again evidence laid in layers, telling you about what happened in the past, and also giving inspiration of what could happen in the future. I would be shocked if I turned the corner and saw a unicorn. However, I would recognize a motherfucking unicorn, even though I've never seen one. I've seen depictions of it, but I've never seen one for real, just like I've never seen a dinosaur. The fact that something is made up or imagined doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It absolutely exists. It is a real object, just one we haven't seen in the present. But just like we've seen in the past, there are things that people imagine, you know, the communicator in Star Trek, you know what I'm saying? When the communicator in Star Trek was supposed to be complete science fiction, imagination, but it actually came into being. Now it's old tech. You know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to get at in these talks is that a culture soldier does not fight over the truth. A culture soldier does not fight over evil. A culture soldier, as I'm presenting it for your time to think about it, has one particular persistent attitude that because I exist and I've had the existence I've had, there must be a goodness to what I'm existing in. It all reflects who I am, and I'm reflected in everything I see. I'm brand new here, but this is 14 billion years old, but I can already identify and am friends with all these people, all these ideas, all these concepts, all these words, all these animals, all this life that has been here for all these billions of years, making it possible for me to have this present, this lifetime, this moment to experience all of that congregate experience. My issue is this: you can call it evil, you could call it bad, you could call it a lie, but that's just spin, that's just an opinion, that's just a criticism of something that I know you don't understand because I don't understand it. And worse off, it's not only a criticism of something you don't understand, it's a criticism of something that you wouldn't even be able to start to recreate. We live in a very skeptical culture that truly believes it knows what evil is. People believe very deeply in the fact that they know what evil is, what a lie is, what's right and what's wrong. I do not know what's wrong. I do not know what a lie is. I do not know what evil is. All I know is the same old soul. It's one thing going on here. E equals MC squared. It's energy. There's good energy, there's bad energy, there's just energy. And since there's only one thing going on here, if you believe any of it is bad, all of it is bad, because there's only one thing going on here. If you believe any of it is good, all of it is good, because you believe there's only one thing going on here. If you believe there are more than one thing's going on here, well, then that's your choice, and then you can sift and decide what isn't good, what is bad. But I promise you, everything you sift through, you're sifting through in your brain, not out here in the world. And it is only your reality that you're judging. And the things that you judge as being evil, as being wrong, really, all you're really judging is the things that you don't want to be like or you don't want to experience. Can't something be good just because you don't want to do it? In other words, can you hate the sin and love the sinner? It's real simple to me. Coming up in my hood, some of the people that was most hated in a ghetto that was hated by the world, the people that was most hated in the place that was most hated, were the people called crackheads. I was a crackhead, straight up. I was a motherfucking crackhead, a fiend. Went through Yale, buying crack in the projects. And let me tell you something, as being one of the most hated in the place where the people who were most hated lived, while going to one of the most honorable schools in the country, I learned that there's very little difference between how we devalue someone and how we value someone, to be really honest with you. Basically, everyone is a supreme divine expression of the angels. I'm a Chango. I move from the bottom to the top. I walk the road. I go through circles. I'm the flow of electricity. I move from the ghetto to the mansions. You know what I'm saying? And after walking the road I've walked throughout our culture, I've come to recognize that there is no evil people. There is no hell. There is no ghetto except for the ghetto you got to get to. You know what I'm saying? A ghetto is just a concentration of one particular group of people, culturally, geographically, separated from the rest of their culture because their culture don't want to be a part of them and they don't want to be a part of the culture. Now, you would say African Americans wanted to be part of the culture. They were striving, they were looking to move into nice neighborhoods. But I grew up around some brothers that, you know, had none of that bougie attitude. They were like, I'm good right here in my hood. And, you know, I I I, I tell you, I went to high school in suburbia, and I grew up in the hood. And my basic thing is this: only those who are trying to control you will tell you that you have a better childhood in the suburbs than in the hood. Only those who are trying to control you will tell you you get a better education at Yale than you do coming up through the hood, learning the culture of the hood. There are things that I studied both in the hood and at Yale. There's actual subjects that, and I'm not just talking about hip hop. Yes, everybody knows you could have studied hip hop at both Yale and in the hood back in the day when New York had real people of color, economically marginalized, homogenous hoods. You know what I'm saying? The fact of the matter is that when I started studying West and Central African culture, I started studying it in the Ivory Tower at Cooper Union. But I ended up studying for 20 years in Bed-Stuy with a brother who didn't go to no Ivy Tower schools, but sat down in the hood with other brothers that knew their history, going back to the point where they're speaking African language. You know what I'm saying? Cubans, Haitians, you know, Jamaicans, you know. I started to learn about African culture when I was a kid in my hood. I went to the Ivy League to study it, and I studied it both in my hood and in the Ivy League. When I went to Robert Ferris Thompson, who is a very famous, probably the most famous public intellectual on African traditional culture, you know what I'm saying? Thompson said to me, said to the whole class, in fact, had me stand up inside of the lecture room. And he said, this is the first time that one of my sources from the field is a student of mine. That's what's going on in world culture right now. The cultures that Europeans dismissed and only recognized as cultures that they should study as outside examples of humanity. Now these cultures that were once outside examples of humanity have children actually going into their schools. And what's deep is that many of those children don't know their own culture. So the only way they can even start to embrace their own culture is to learn all of the history that the Europeans have. The Europeans put every type of spin on all the cultures around the world to devalue them. Just like our wonderful president talking about bad hombres from Mexico. He doesn't talk about the incredible tradition of the Aztecs and how Native Americans here went through suffering that was almost as profound as what African Americans went through the diaspora. How General Santana had all of Texas, and really Texas and California was originally part of Mexico. The only way that he can find the right to push the policies that he pushes on people of Central and South America is because we don't know as a people the history of those people. It's because we don't see that as a common reality amongst ourselves. It's our ignorance that allows his lie to be the truth. And I understand that. Like I said, there's no such thing as a lie. However, if you were aware of all the truth and put everything into context, you would recognize that Trump is no different than George Washington and Thomas Jefferson talking about let all men be created equal while they got slaves in there, you know, with a smile, all men are created equal, except for you. You know what I'm saying? Yo, this has been going on for a long time. And the reason why it can happen is because they're telling the truth. You know what I'm saying? They're telling the truth. They're saying their truth, you know? And they get so hyped about it, they're willing to die over their truth. Not only are they willing to be violent with you to the point to deny a whole people, a whole portion of the population, the right to be equal with the other portion of the population. But they are so bound to that truth, they're willing to die over it. It's the Civil War. So really, what I love about this viral outbreak is that, once again, it jars all of the things that don't immediately connect with reality. You know what I'm saying? This virus outbreak makes people suddenly think about the fact that, you know, well, the Republicans say that healthcare isn't a human right, but if everybody doesn't get healthcare, how can I, as a human being, survive amongst other human beings who can give me their illness because they haven't had care? We're one organism. If you pick and choose who gets care, well, that would be like your platelets picking and choosing which cut they're going to clot. We only clot cuts in the thigh. We're against the arms. You bleed to death if you cut your arm. This world, this reality, the present we live in, is based on laws and cooperations that we can see in our very flesh. Now, you can tell truths that go against cooperating, but those truths are always because you have some goal that you think cooperating is going to eclipse. And the way in which you keep the goal secret is by saying, well, it's just bad for you to do that. Now, look at what happened to our President Trump when the pandemic was on the horizon. His goal was to become president again, business as usual. He didn't care about what Democrats said. He didn't care about what anybody said. He was taking apart government, taking away everything that evil nigga did, you know, take away everything Obama did, get rid of the pandemic office in the White House. You know, it was real. I mean, after all, he was a birther. The only reason why he's in the presidency is because he said he would undo everything this black man did to our great white republic. You know, our republic for white men. Our republic built and founded for rich white men. You know what I'm saying? So he's looking to take us back to that great republic founded by rich white men. And here's this virus on the horizon. So this is a cat that all his life was able to sculpt the reality he wanted in the future by saying something now that wasn't true. But regardless of the truth of it, it pushed him towards where he wanted to be. Doesn't matter if Obama was born in Hawaii. Doesn't matter if he's a US citizen. As long as I keep questioning that, I'm going to get on TV. People are going to recognize that I'm being ridiculous simply because Obama is Black. But nobody is really able to say it, so it's all good. That's all he's done with this pandemic. The doctors, the people who actually know, told him what evidence says, that this isn't a normal situation. But he felt he could bulldoze through it and keep the stocks up and all of that. And then he definitely didn't want the government to help. The whole Republican thing since Ronald Reagan has been, yo, make the government small enough that you can snuff it out in a bathtub. Well, now we have a government that's weak enough that you can snuff it out in a bathtub. Guess who's snuffing it out? Coronavirus. Who's snuffing the, I tell you, man. But I like I said, I believe it's all good. I believe that, granted the loss of life is a tragedy, but we all came here to die, we're born to die. You know what I'm saying? And no matter when it happens, it's a tragedy. I don't care how old you are, or how young you are. It's always a tragedy. Even an abortion, yes, it's a tragedy. I always am sad anytime something is conceived and doesn't get to experience the full and most beautiful possible arc it can experience in time and space. But nonetheless, I know, regardless of how long the arc is, death is inevitable, right? So what it really comes down to is what are you sacrificing yourself for? What kind of death? What's a good death for you? My father, I'm pretty certain my father passed away from COVID. Now, don't get me wrong. He was 75. He was very ill. He had been told he had 2 weeks to live from a weak heart in September. But surprise, surprise, he survives all the way till January. And he gets ill with this flu and ends up going on a respirator and dying over this lung infection. So this was a little bit before everyone else, but my father was an avid politics man. And I'm really going into this thing on Soul School. God bless my father. Ibaye, Trevor Anthony, Christopher Hothan, beautiful man. In any case, my father, he basically lived politics. He loved watching these cats. And he grew up with Trump. He remembers when he tried to get into Trump houses when I was a little kid, when I was, 7, 8 years old in 78, 77. My father applied to get into Trump houses over in Queens. We later found out that they weren't allowing Black people in, regardless of how much money they made. My father was making pretty good money at the time. But this whole thing of knowing a tenant is bad because they are Black, knowing a tenant is bad because their skin is dark, knowing a Mexican is bad because they're Mexican. It's the knowledge of evil that is the problem. And that's why it makes me really sad when people turn and talk about Trump as being evil. All Trump is pointing out this history of a philosophy that we don't need to engage in if we recognize it and give it no give it no ability to do something to us as a people. You know what I'm saying? It's really easy to identify European supremacy. European supremacy always uses the idea of evil to guide violence in support of defending something good. The fact of the matter is that violence and the knowledge of evil does far more harm than most anything we call evil. I'd say that real straight up. As a society, when you look at what we want as a people and what we want to avoid as a people, you know, it is the knowledge of evil that makes violence all right for us as a society. Violence is never all right, man. You know, I don't care. The whole reason why we get together as a society is to try to curtail violence, is to try to let each other be free without having to be controlled by violence. But nonetheless, our society is completely riddled with people who can't rationally give you an argument against doing what you're doing, other than they don't like it. But yo, if you don't like what I'm doing, cool. Do what you do. And I'll do what I do. And then, like for instance, with drugs, the argument is always, well, if you're doing drugs, what happens when you get behind a wheel? Then you kill me, right? So you shouldn't do drugs. Well, with that kind of thinking, what happens when a European supremacist gets behind the wheel and has rage at a demonstration and kills somebody? Does that mean that it should be against the law for people to think like European supremacists because they might kill somebody? I really hope y'all are getting the reasoning that I'm speaking here. You know, the assumption that something is wrong, the assumption that something is evil, is a means that we use to control each other. I know that there are things that I personally don't want to experience. I know there are things that most any human being doesn't want to experience. And I know there are things that I will tolerate experiencing in order to get to something that I truly prize, something I truly value. And there are things that I would give up that I truly value in order to avoid something that I think is going to be so horrible I can't even leave an option for it to happen. I understand all that. We all have things we fear. We all have things we desire. We all have things we want, and we all have things that we do not value and would throw away every time we receive it. That's natural. But those things are based on us speculating about who will be in the future. In the future, you never know who you'll be. You never know what you'll want. You never know what might be happening. So something you don't even think is important today, you know, you go through the supermarket and see some bathroom tissues and you're like, I got enough of those. I ain't worried about that. And then that night you see, you know, COVID-19, this is all spreading, it's a pandemic. All of a sudden you need so much more because of what you believe, what you speculate the future might be. You think as we do these types of speculations, and they're very important speculations, don't get me wrong. I think that each one of us deserves to give much respect to our ability to have an idea what's going to come in the future based on what we do today. It's an amazing ability. And most of the things our society says is absolutely true. If you smoke cigarettes, there's a higher potential for you to have all types of health issues that someone who doesn't smoke cigarettes, that's of course all predicated on the fact that you and the person who doesn't smoke cigarettes both live long enough that those issues become even something to talk about. I've met many smokers that outlive many non-smokers because the non-smoker just dies before the smoker even has symptoms, you know? I'm not arguing the science. Science is right. These things can and will kill a certain percentage, a very high percentage of those who smoke them over decades. They can and will. I just happen to value smoking them enough that I'm willing to embrace those consequences. I am a smoker. Now, if you say smoking is evil and take away smoking from me, I have no choice in the matter. You've used violence against me. You've denied me this herb. I would reject that. I would fight against it, do whatever I can. But if it's taken, it's taken. The only reason to take it from me is the same reason why we kill people on death row. The assumption that because they've killed in the past, they're going to kill in the future, and we won't tolerate that characteristic in our society. We are trying to kill that kind of human in our society. Only with smokers, they don't have to actually kill me. They just deny me the tobacco, and they kill me as a cigarette smoker. I no longer can be a smoker. This thing of wanting to deny other people to make them better, or to kill someone to make society better. Anytime somebody tells me something's going to make things better, I get real skeptical. Better is a word we use to control people and to try to keep people from thinking of the reason why they want to be what they want to be and not what you want them to be. Values, money. What is precious? I used to tell people that Prospect Heights was a bad neighborhood. I'd be like, you don't want to live in Park Slope. That's a bad neighborhood. Because I was from Bushwick. And to me, Bushwick was a good neighborhood. Unfortunately, I kept saying that all during the 80s and 90s. I guess people listen because my good neighborhood is now a bad neighborhood. Now all the people that come from all the good neighborhoods in the country come to my bad neighborhood and made it good, which is bad for me. What the fuck? You see, that's why African Americans use the word bad, you know? I think Shakespeare, and by the way, Shakespeare was one of the first generation of Europeans to have real contact with West and Central Africans. I think Shakespeare talked about what makes a rose sweeter. It's sure ain't the name. You know what I'm saying? It's character and how you are attracted to its character. What's interesting is that African Americans were supposed to have the soulless, primitive character of beasts. But now we have the soulful, graceful character of humanity. Our oogie woogie jungle beats have become the voice of the modern world. Our abstract assemblages and found object sculptures have become the way in which many modern artists work. And this is all due to the fact that it was just spin. It was just shade. It was just the knowledge of evil that made West and Central African culture bad and kept us all ignorant about that complete history. You know, I talk about Ogun and Obatala and Chango. These are angels, you know, they're concepts that go back to the beginning of time and space, but they were concepts that were demonstrated by people in history. There was a man that walked that called himself Obatala. There was a man that walked that called himself Chango. They just displayed in their life and in the concepts that they expressed these older characteristics that existed before life existed. Now, we're familiar with that in science. You know, Einstein E equals MC squared. We'll always think of Einstein as being, you know, general relativity itself, you know? It's interesting to me that in German, Einstein means the rock. And, you know, when you recognize that this is a solidarity, this is a singularity, this is one thing expressing itself as all things, the same old soul, that it is your soul that produces everything that you've ever experienced and everything that has ever anyone has ever been experienced to is also your soul from their particular experience. It's shells of identity, some of which you're never able to move on through, some of which you move through so quickly you would never even recognize the differences. So basically, as a culture soldier, you're not a warrior. You're not worried about who's going to win the culture war because you know what you're calling. You're calling Jah. You're calling your soul. You're calling your head, your Ori, and asking it, what's really good? What's really the truth? And based on what you've been educated with, you will make your choice, your cha. You'll cha, cha, cha. You'll choose, choose, choose. You'll make soul selection because this is a democracy. You are one soul, but you know you have many minds. Maybe not as many minds as you have cells or you have organs or you have bones. You are one thing made of many things. Just like everything around you, all soul sacks, all sacks of souls of sacks of souls and sacks of souls. That's the difference between Orisha and the souls. With Orisha, there's a pecking order. There's the oldest Orisha, there's Orisha that has power over this, there's the Orisha that has power over that. And the whole reason why the Yoruba call them Orisha is because they were the chosen ones. They were chosen. And why were they chosen? Because they are the ones that survive. We as human beings have a short arc through space. Hydrogen has been here since the Big Bang and will be here long after we do whatever we do, you know? But nonetheless, hydrogen has a soul and you have a soul. And one soul always equals one soul. There are no pecking orders. There is no above and below. There is no preferential spot. Every spot has its privileges. And none of those privileges are preferential. Yeah, it's easy to say, man, I'd rather be the slave master than the slave. But is that really true? How would you feel being a slave master? How would you feel giving pain to people every day in order to make money and keep your family safe? Yeah, you might do it to keep your family safe and whatnot. Shoot, you may even enjoy it. But would you really like being you? In order for me to enjoy being me, it's my type of head. I ain't saying it's the truth. Your head may be different. But in order for me to enjoy being me, I have to be the sort of person that brings joy into other people's worlds. If I'm the sort of person that brings pain into people's worlds, especially the type of pain that you get from being raped and having your children sold and all the horrors that we went through in this country during that time, man, I would much rather go through the suffering than be the one that did the suffering over and over and again, even though I had the free will not to. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. This world and these ideas of good and bad, what is supposed to guide you in this world, I don't think that you're really thinking about your world if what you're guided by is what is good and what is bad. I think that you got to think, and I don't mean being selfish either, because if it rubs you the wrong way, then it's not about you. If you think it's wrong for you to sit around and just make yourself happy, well, then it's wrong for you to sit around and just make yourself happy. But if you think it's right for you to just sit around and make yourself, then it's right for you to just sit around and make yourself happy. You know, people are so much in each other throwing shade on somebody else's joy is about the most, it's so hard to figure out in this world what you really like, what you really about, how you really feel. You know what I'm saying? So to be a culture soldier is to believe what's true in your own heart is true in the hearts of all men. However, be open to learn that what's true in your own heart may be only true in your own heart. But that's something you should learn. And the only way to learn it is by sharing what's true in your own heart. You know, soul splay soul sax. That's a self-portrait. That's a saxophone that represents me. And I don't play the saxophone musically. I play the saxophone conceptually. I am a musical instrument, a conceptual instrument of meaning. And just like a blues man plays chords and gets harmonies, I play concepts and ideas and get harmonic meanings by opening up my heart. So splays so zax. You know what I'm saying? And in this way, you know, you can see some of the truths for me. Now, what those truths, if they jar with you, that's wonderful. But the thing that I'm going to focus on is what I celebrate, which is, you know, the angels. And I'm going to not only focus on how I celebrate the angels, but how all of creation does. I may not want to celebrate Trump, but I recognize the angels that are moving through Trump. You know what I'm saying? There's no mistake that his caps are red and white. He's a very Chongo type cat. He's been blessed with that gift of gab. He is exposing the horizon that is true to his people, exposing the truth in his own heart that's true in the hearts of his people. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to do the same thing. I may not use the same tactics. I may not, try to herd my people or corral my people by saying his people are evil. They're not evil. His people are wrong. They're not wrong. His people will lead to suffering. Yes, yes. Unfortunately, that I have to acknowledge. Trump and the philosophy and the policies that he pushes will lead to suffering. But there's no promise that anything isn't going to lead to suffering. Suffering is always on the table. Yes, I want to rob from pain, but it's never really clear how to rob from pain. How do you rob hurt? I know how to withstand hurt, how to resist hurt, how to survive hurt. You know what I'm saying? I know that it is very important to be able to receive hurt without having to give hurt, because hurt goes around, hurt comes around. You know what I'm saying? The more hurt you can absorb in a graceful way, the less hurt there is. And I'm trying to rob hurt. I love bluesmen. Rob Hurt, Ja's son. You know what I'm saying? Because they celebrated their pain instead of becoming violent about their pain. Instead of making songs like punks threatening violence, they made songs that questioned the punks that made the violent policies that was bringing them pain in this world. And the other thing that they fought, other than bourgeoisie, the bougie, the bluesmen also fought the concept of love, believe it or not. Because love causes a lot of pain. Sunhouse once said that the blues is the love between a man and a woman. The blues is the love between a man and a woman. I know in my life, for as painful as racism has been, nothing has caused me more pain. Even death hasn't caused me more pain than the love I've had for women, than my intimate relationships. Intimate relationships are incredibly capable of causing a type of pain that can overshadow even physical pain. Physical pain subsides. When I think about how I broke my ankle, yeah, I remember the pain, but I don't feel the same pain that I felt when I broke my ankle. But when I remember about how an intimate relationship of mine ended, man, it's almost the same pain every time I remember it. But, maybe it's different for different folks. In any case, the bluesmen did a lot about pain, and so did the blues women. I'm sorry not to mention that. Actually, the blues women were, Bessie Smith. I do the Soul Saints. I'm always talking about the souls, the ancestral souls that I feel, African American souls that fought the culture war in Africa, I mean, take someone like Bessie Smith. She fought the culture war here in the United States, but Bessie Smith used the same strategies as Yemoja used in Nigeria. So here you have the story of Yemoja talking about doing the blues and being the ocean, and how her man is a rock, and how she's trying to love this stone that is falling in her. You know what I'm saying? She was singing like that in Nigeria. Yemoja was the ocean in Nigeria, talking about how she wants to cool her hot man, how she wants to cool the lava, how she wants to cool the Ganju, the volcano. You know what I'm saying? The blues she got, the pain she got from her men, from Ogun, you know, making fun of her till she falls down and becomes a river. You know what I'm saying? This is the same type of strategy that Bessie Smith was using in her songs, in the blues. So I call her Soul Saint, the deep blue sea smith. A smith is someone that forms metal, but a smith is telling a story in metal, a myth in metal. Yemaya is a silversmith. Bessie Smith was the silver soul she banged her story into in the United States. The deep blue sea smith would sing on the radio, "My man has a heart like a stone in the sea." You have Josephine Baker using her sexuality to overturn patrimony, which kept women, particularly a woman of color, from having wealth. She became the richest Black woman in the world, using the sexuality to turn the tables on laws and regulations that were specifically structured to keep her from being able to enjoy the riches that society produces, unless she's married to a man that has rights to those riches and shares them with him. She overturned that. How'd she overturn that? Using her sexuality, using her absolute fearless ability to display her body to the people that most wanted it, and do it in such a way that not only did they respect her enough that she did not go through violence, but they rewarded her for doing something that so much of society was dead set against. That's Oshun. That's the little culture soldier, Oshun Were, the little girl that overwhelms an army. And guess what? She doesn't overwhelm the army because she's a fiend, because she's a slut. No, Souls ain't just a fiend baker. She ain't just baked those fiends by being a fiend. She baked those fiends by having creativity, by having insight, by having artistry, by having grace, by being fearless. You know what I'm saying? Here you have Soul Saint pull robes on. Soul Saint pulls robes on. Paul Robeson is a little bit complicated because you have to know a lot about Obatala as it was celebrated in Africa. Obatala, which means the king of the white cloth. The white cloth was often thought of when a baby was born, it was the caul. The caul was the white cloth of the angel. And a baby that was born with the caul over their face, with a white cloth draped around them, was considered to be a child of Obatala because they had this immaculate call, this immaculate white call, and all the blood and disturbance of being born. They had this delicate fabric of clear white wearing from the moment they were born into this world. Well, I talk about my man Paul Robeson being born into a world in which not only was scholarship considered to be the only the field of white men, but athletics was also considered to be only the field of white men. And he came up in that situation and was such a profound athlete that he had to be accepted as a champion, but also against all prejudice, preconceptions, he was an incredible scholar. He had an incredible mind. Obatala, he had a beautiful head. So I call him Souls Ain't Pull Robes On, because he was born, he was blessed with the angels, with this double factor spirit, this cool ability to express himself physically and to express himself intellectually. And just because he was Black, he had to have the robes of Othello thrown on him. So even if he was born without a call, he still had to have the white robes of Othello wrapped around him, because that's the only way a European culture could accept an African-American man on the stage. He had to be Othello. He had to wear the white cloth of Obatala, the Moor. And he wore them well. He was a very cool Othello. Souls ain't pull robes on. You know what I'm saying? You notice how these names also speak about the strategy. And the strategy is absolutely key in the characteristic of the Orisha. In West Africa, Central Africa, most of the time you walk up on an artist, they'll say, instead of signing their work or telling you it's their work, they'll say, look at what God left for me in the bush. Look at what God created and I found in the jungle. Well, the souls, I didn't make the souls. The souls are just what's there. When I say souls ain't Bob Marley, I'm talking about Bob Marley as Dada. I'm saying, yeah, it looks like he's merrily bobbing along, merrily jumping, just all happiness. But nah, souls ain't Bob Marley. Souls bobbed fiercely. You know what I'm saying? And that's Dada. Dada uses merriment as the tool and weapon of war. You know what I'm saying? Dada gets the enemy partying with him. You dance with me, you find it much more difficult to be my enemy. In fact, you may want to become a Rasta like me, you know? And then you have Soul Saint March and Lift the King. Martin Luther King, Soul Saint March and Lift the King. Talking about Chongo. Talking about how one walks the road and the rest follow. The leader. When a lightning bolt comes down from the heavens, there's a leader, a spark that comes up, a little spark that comes up from the ground to meet the lightning. Chongo's that leader that little spark that brings the flow of electrons, the flow of force, the flow of unison, unity together. That's why I was saying Trump is very much using that Chongo energy. He's sparking the crowd. Chongo is an MC like a Legba, a master of ceremonies, a mover of the crowd. You know what I'm saying? Orisha are very specific, and you know, I don't care what you believe in. I don't care what you don't believe in. All I care about is what you experience. And all of you are experiencing Orisha all the time. And I'm just trying to point out your experiences and have you associate with them with this larger association of experiences that all seem to have characteristic signatures that are consistent and related to each other. So we all have a heart. Our heart is Ogun. It's the truth. It's our personal truth. And why is it the truth? Because we can't get nothing done without the heart. All things are like that. Our earth has a center. It's its heart. And we can't get anything done unless we feel ourselves accelerating 32 yards per second or whatever towards the center of the earth. Gravity, issue, the force that holds us to the ground, is acceleration. It literally means that we are standing on ground that is resisting or pushing us at tremendous speeds, but we're standing still. So since the earth isn't growing at 32 yards per second, what's going on? Time and space is flowing at 32 yards per second to the center of the earth. And it has a heartbeat because it's revolving. Anything that revolves is a frequency. It's a heartbeat, you know? So each one of us are like that. By analogy, we're on a smaller scale, but our hearts draw each other closer together. You know what I'm saying? We accelerate ourselves towards one another based on these types of forces. I guess with Orisha, it's really important to talk about fractal analogies. How the leaf on one scale can look very similar to the tree on another scale, can look very similar to a forest on another scale. Each scale, the leaf isn't exactly like the tree isn't exactly like the forest. The atom isn't exactly like the solar system's not exactly like the galaxy. You see this type of fractal expression all the time. In between, it doesn't seem to be similarities. but you have these shells where there is similarity. You see the same thing in frequency. In frequency, you see a similar thing where you have red and blue. They're both light, but they're different types of light. If you look, red and orange, it's hard to tell where red starts or where orange begins. They're very analogous to one another. But if you put blue with red, you get a high contrast. Once it starts going purple, though, that contrast starts to become negligible. Everything is in grooves. Everything is in shells. The Yoruba would make concentric circles to represent the head, the soul. You know? And our earth is a set of concentric spheres, right? You know, like an onion, right? What I'm trying to get at here is that anything you focus on has these characteristics. They have things that they are like. They have things that are less and less and less and less like them until they are something else. Usually in the middle, it's hard to tell the difference. They have a center and then shells and shells and shells, you know? The fact that so many things can be described in the same way, poetically, by analogy, means that there's really very little going on here, but many ways to see it. So when someone says, for instance, like smoking marijuana isn't good for you, are they saying that the way in which marijuana affects your mind is going to be something that you will not appreciate? They're basically trying to tell you the future. If I had never smoked marijuana before, if I never did drugs before, I would want to research them. But as a child, we've never researched many of the things we put into our body. People talk about drugs and chemicals, but the fact is that everything is a chemical. Some chemicals, some drugs, some substances have effects that we all are accepting, but can be very different from person to person. Peanuts, a wonderful wonderful plant. Some people, they eat a peanut and that's that. It's deadly. For other people, it could be alcohol. For other people, it could be Tylenol. It was deep to me when they realized that people were dying more quickly when they take ibuprofen. But we in our society always think, well, if I have a fever, the fever could get high enough that I could actually get brain damage from the fever. So I should break the symptom of the fever by taking ibuprofen. Not recognizing how important it is for our body and its strategy with this particular virus to heat it out. This virus is very susceptible to heat. And our body's strategy of getting a fever is perfect for this particular virus. But people choose to do what they felt was better, which is to stop the fever. That's the thing about things that are good. If you just believe they're good and you don't understand why they're good, how they're good, what they do, what are the things they do that you don't even count, what they call side effects. But the fact is that they're not side effects, they're effects, Babies go around and put everything in their mouth, and we go and control the baby. That's nasty, that's wrong. The baby knows what the baby needs. The baby needs to be able to survive everything. The baby system recognizes that anything that's on the outside that I can grab, I better be able to survive it on the inside, because in some amount, it's going to get in me. We all have the chemicals of plastic in us. Even people who seldom use plastic, you can find those chemicals in them. Because there's no police on atoms. There's no police on molecules. We cannot make a machine that messes with atoms and molecules. Life is the machine that messes with atoms and molecules. We can do some very awkward arrangements and make some molecules, unfortunately very stable, long-lasting molecules, but not with the grace that life makes molecules. Our life figures out what to do with different molecules and different atoms. You know what I'm saying? Life is an amazing chemist. Stupendous. Life is so good at chemistry that usually a lot of our chemistry depends on life for it to do it. We couldn't do it if we had to. We have a similar relationship with everything in life, that we're all connected. If something's happening in a bat community, eventually it could happen in the human community. We're all very much one organism. And no matter how much you police your child from putting stuff in their face, the fact is that the child has a good argument why they're putting stuff in their face, and you have a good argument as to why not to. Sometimes it's hard to recognize everybody has a good argument. With the child, it's easy which one you follow. The parent's argument wins. You keep the stuff out of the child's face. You police the child. But with us grown folk, do we have to police each other like children like that? Can't we just provide each other with the information and let each other make their own decisions? Statistics may go against the decision you're making, but your desire may be greater than the statistics. all I'm trying to say is that if we keep going along the way we're going, we're about to get controls over life itself. I mean, we're able to write using, and of course it was life that gave us the ability. It was Bablu Aye, you know, that led us to CRISPR. And CRISPR is the technology where we can write the staff of life, write DNA. You know what I'm saying? And we will be able to change ourselves and change any life on earth according to our tastes. That's why it's so important that we think very clearly about our tastes. When we interject in life, we are doing something that's going to be in life forever. You know, eventually, if it's popular. That means that we have to be able to give each other incredible freedoms while we also avoid disasters. And I don't know how to say it to y'all other than, you know, it's going to do what it does. Because I don't believe any one person, any group, any set of laws, any philosophy is going to be able to have enough control over us as a people to determine what's actually going to happen. People are going to do everything and anything they know how to do. And we are getting to a point where human knowledge will empower an individual to do things where that individual can create something like the coronavirus and make an impact on the world. But what difference does it make if, here, I love this story out of Buddhism, where the guy's in the boat and a boat that's empty hits him and he pushes it out the way and he keeps it moving. But a boat that's filled hit him. He looks at the guy and says, "Why you hit me?" The guy says, "Why you hit me?" And they fight until they both fall in the water. The fact is that there was no difference between the empty boat and the boat with someone in it, other than he got into a fight with the boat that had someone in it. And that's what we do as humanity. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we tried to curb the virus, but the fact of the matter is that whether the virus is created by a person or created by a circumstance where, you know, bat blood hit pig blood, hit human being, whatever the circumstance was, it's real and we have to deal with it as a people. And as much as you may want to prevent in the future a virus from happening, a virus is going to happen. Just like as much as we wish we could have prevented murder or prevented death or prevented earthquakes or hurricanes, these things are going to happen. I don't care how many murderers you kill, you're not going to stop murdering. People are still going to murder each other. I don't care how many viruses you get vaccines for, there's still going to be a virus that will come out that you are going to have to deal with, either made by man or made by God, which is the same thing, by the way, because all we are is the hand of God, just like any other expression in time and space. You know? So many of our fears, so many of our laws, so many of our policies are not based on the fact that shit happens. They're based on the idea that we can stop shit from happening. I am open to stopping murdering. I'm open to stopping people from assaulting each other. I'm open to stopping all of that stuff. However, I also know that as long as people are free and can do what they want to do and have privacy, they're going to do these things. It's going to go down. Just like as long as there's hot water over the Atlantic and the change of season brings a cold front down, there's going to be hurricanes. And those hurricanes are going to follow the route, screaming and twisting and tearing that my ancestors took to come to this world, representing all that ancestral pain. In all honesty, the reason why crimes happen, the reason why life isn't fair, the reason why anything that you wish didn't happen, happened, the reason why you were victimized or someone you loved was victimized, the real reason why it all went down is the same reason why the Big Bang happened. Because this is all created by you, for you, as you. And if you are someone that's abused someone, believe me, you abused that person because you felt you were abused in some way by the same thing that pushed you to abuse that person. And what is that? That is God. That's reality. That's the only thing that makes anything happen is one thing. The energy we're all composed of. So it's all good. When I get pissed off, it's good. When I'm laid back, it's good. I celebrate the whole spectrum. That's soul scope aesthetic. Soul scope aesthetic is recognizing that, is recognizing that you are the slave master and the slave, and the cat that just sat back and watched it all happen. And the cat that made the slave master be the slave master and made the slave be the slave. You're the whole game. Not because you actually remember doing it, not because you know how to do it, but simply because you are in it. And as a result, you're able to imagine all of it. And imagining it isn't it, but it is it because it's all you got. I don't know, maybe I'm not making any kind of sense. Imagination is so belittled in our culture. To me, imagination is heaven. Anything you imagine, the only reason why you're not riding on the back of that unicorn right now is because you're not in heaven. In heaven, everything you imagine exists. Why does it exist? Because it actually exists in reality right now. And the reason why everything exists in reality right now is because what we call an imagination is actually the source of what humans will make in the future. And if we don't make it something that's some version of us will make something like it. You can't imagine something without it actually existing. Everything that we are was somebody else's imagination. Everything that we imagine will be what somebody else actually experiences. Believe that, man. In poetic, fractal ways, never specific. Like they attribute it to Mark Twain, but I bet you it was one of Mark Twain's motherfucking slave friends that said, "Oh, history don't repeat itself, but it sure do rhyme." History is unique. Every moment is unique, but every moment is a free association of the moment before it. Every moment changes based on spontaneity, based on improvisation, based on taking what was and doing it differently. And those unique changes are responsible for all of time and space. And what we call our imagination is simply a staging universe for all of the things that no longer are expressing themselves in time and space, and all of the things that will in the future express themselves in time and space. Everything else is right here in time and space with us in the present, the ever loving, ever moving, ever expressive moment that scopes the energy and the record of that energy in time and space, the focal point between the past and the present, the only thing that truly exists, the gift of God that we all share, and it's continuous, absolutely precious, and complete sacrifice of every moment to give birth to a changed and renewed and re-express uniquely itself new moment. Because that's what we live in, man. Every atom we're made of has an electron ripping around it at near light speed. We're a force field. We're a force field made of force fields in a force field. There's nothing about us that's material, but everything about us is solid. We're solid energy. And that energy is perfect, it's precise, it's a precision machine that records every single moment it eats up. We are all a memorable, a memorial. We are all a memorial to all of this acceleration moving through us, all this time and space being poured into this planet at 32 feet or meters per second, whatever, the acceleration of gravity, the G1 of time and space is being consumed every moment. And with each consumption, like our heart, everything changes position, just at light speeds. So it seems continuous to us, but actually it isn't continuous. Time and space moves in increments. When you watch an old TV, when you watch this TV, if you could see more continuously the old TVs, the electrode scopes, you wouldn't even be able to recognize what was going on, because you would see all the gaps and see how it was just one row of electrons moving very quickly across the screen that gave you the idea that there was even an image there, you know? That's how time and space is. Time and space is an image being focused on and being eradicated. A evidence of the position of the different energies around us being expressed and eradicated so that we can notice the next changes that happen in the energy field. The matrix is reality. Reality is pixelized. Reality can look smooth, like analog, like a wave, and reality can be discrete, like a pixel, like a bullet. But in both conditions, you're just talking about a grid, a three-dimensional grid, and points of interaction occurring within it. I keep telling y'all, when simple analogies like that describe everything, when you can describe everything with simple analogies like that, let's put it that way. I mean, this screen could be a window into anything, you know what I'm saying? And we use it as such, you know? Our ancestors have been doing so since they were painting on rocks. You know what I'm saying? this shared reality we're in is very simple. But what's deep about it is that we have a hard time even conceiving of something that you can't represent on this screen. We can't communicate things outside of this simple expression we're all sharing. Our wildest dreams could be absolutely illustrated and soundcast on the screen. And to everybody watching it, it would be almost the same as being you, except they don't get all of the information about your body, like, you know, your heart beating and your muscles twitching and your butt aching from sitting so long. My butt's aching from sitting so long. But the fact of the matter is that we don't even get that information. When you're sitting watching a movie, you completely forget about your body. All you are is the screen. You're more the people in the screen than you are yourself. Something so simple, but I mean, what's deep to me about it is that we look at simple things like they're not important, but there's nothing else but simple things going on all around us. Things get very, very complicated. And the more complicated they get, the more easily they can be broken down with a simple thing. That's what the common denominator means in math. You know what I'm saying? Look at how many simple things it takes for me to exist, how many simple things it takes for you to exist. It takes realms of simple things. I mean, all of the simple atoms you're made of, all the simple molecules you're made of, all the simple cells you're made of, all of which the parts, a sixth grader could learn the parts. You know what I'm saying? There's simple parts that do simple things, scale after scale after scale. Guess what? We assume that the most intelligent thing is the thing that takes all those parts together to be our mind, our head. But yo, if all we are is the same thing over and over and over again, the same three quarks surrounded by the same shells of electrons, you know what I'm saying? Which is really intelligent? I don't know. I know at my scale, if I build something, if me, you, and everybody got together and built something out of the human body that could walk around and eat and do whatever it wanted, I would think about that like I would think about a spaceship. I, the one who built the spaceship, the one who operates the spaceship, the one that made the AI that is more intelligent than I would ever be, am the one that is in control and made this thing. And sooner or later, I'm going to have to take this thing apart to make the next thing I want to make. Well, that's what atoms do. Atoms make us all up. They build us like we would build a spaceship. They ride us until our warranty's up, and then they recycle and make something that looks just like us. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the first intelligent life we'll meet is the life that intelligently is creating us every moment. The atoms that dance around, making it possible for me to be speaking with you right now. Those atoms are Orisha. Hydrogen made the whole elementary periodic table by just adding on to itself. It said if 3 quarks and an electron can do this, what happens when I get 6 quarks and 2 electrons? Multiplying by 3s like a Legba does. Hydrogen multiplied by 3s until he got way up into uranium. Just basically counting. And all of his numbers are the numbers that we all exist in. were basically made of what hydrogen counted off in his furnace, the stars, his oguns. Yeah, well, I mean, I really wonder sometimes about my culture, about the other cultures that I didn't get to really experience because of my culture, the other languages that I didn't get taught because of my culture. I love my culture. My culture's perfect. I am very proud to be a European American with distinctly African genetic traits. And I'm very happy, very, very proud for the African cultural retentions that my family and my community resiliently held in the face of European supremacy. But as I get to look at this reality I'm living in, as I get to look at time and space, as I listen to the descriptions that our scientists, you know, our spiritualists, our history has shown, I get so curious about how other cultures would categorize and organize the observations and insights of the natural world that Europeans have almost completely monopolized. I mean, think about it. Every scientist understands the natural world through only Greek and Roman language and their own language, English or German or whatever academic scholarly language they grew up in, whether they grew up in Africa or Cuba, they're going to speak some sort of Western language in the pursuit of science. To me, this is one of the greatest sacrifices that European supremacy has put on us. I feel that every culture around the world studied nature just like the Greeks and the Romans. But every culture had a different perspective on natural phenomena. Every culture had a different speculation on natural phenomena. When we talk about something being hermetically sealed, when we talk about something like oxygen, hydrogen, oxygen, these are words based on Greek and Roman understandings of the substances and their descriptions of those substances. Everyone got to experience these substances. Everyone had, what is clear all around the world. So everyone saw the characteristics, but they all organized these characteristics differently. Every culture across the world. I strongly suggest to culture soldiers to look at the European romanticized Greekophile the Greekified, but in any case, the Greek and the Roman monopoly on naming and expressing the meaning and the relationship in meaning between things, and seeing if you can do that using traditional Aztec culture, or using traditional Hindu culture, or using traditional First Nations of Australia's. I do it with Yoruba. I feel that it's very clear in Yoruba, because in Yoruba they had very clear definitions. Just like hydrogen means the origin from water. This is their connection, the Greek understanding of what hydrogen is. From a Yoruba point of view, looking at the same evidence, I think they would call hydrogen Eshu, because it is at the very center of all the other atoms. All the other atoms are basically shells around the center, which is Eshu, the one born being a ball, the one that starts it, the origin of ballness. You know what I'm saying? But, until folks learn the science, gotta know the science. I know a little bit of it, but not nearly as well as someone who really knows their science, like, a public intellectual or something over at the Museum of Natural History. But I also know my Western Central African culture, particularly Yoruba, but even with Congo, the Congo talk about Mpongo. Mpongo are like the rivers down which life formed. The trees, the branches, every time you look at a scientific display of life and the forms of life there are on the planet, the scientific display always takes the form of a tree or a forking river, because we all started from the same source, all one thing that goes off and takes different roads to express itself. So, to me, as a culture soldier, one of the things you want to be trying to do is to make more and more life good and undermine the concept of things being evil or wrong or bad. Things could be bad. Things could be bad. That's a bad motherfucker. But not bad like you got to reject it and put it in jail for life just because it is what it is. Because if it is what it is, it's still a human being, just like you and me. And I don't want to be enslaved, and I don't want to enslave nobody. And I don't want to be a part of a society that is silly enough to think enslaving somebody is going to stop something from happening. The way you stop something from happening is by either making it so difficult nobody wants to do it, and then I don't know, man. I hate policy. I don't want to tell people what not to do. I want to tell people what to do. That's my word. I want to provide freedoms, not give up, not make laws and tell people what's wrong in life. I am not looking for any followers. I'm looking for people that share the same issues I have, so that we can roll up in a ball over those issues and at least have the freedom to do those issues that we can all agree on. I don't care about trying to keep anybody else from being what they gotta be. I just don't want to be kept from living the comforts I want to live. And I don't want to see anyone else kept from living the comforts they want to live. On the quality of that, we're all human and we deserve our comforts. And we as a society have the resources that you can get those comforts, even if you're not working every day till you die, even if you're not a billionaire or a white or a citizen, or just because you're human. But we'll see what's popping. I'm kind of going on and on now. It's 8:00. I think I'm gonna call it a little early today. If anybody wants to text me or reach out here on Zoom, I'll be open to anything you want to say. I'm very thankful, Charlotte Hill O'Neill, for your acknowledgement of what I'm sharing. I'm really trying to present things here that you don't hear presented out in the common cultural context. I really want to present options here that you don't hear. And to me, one of the things you don't hear is that you're perfect, that nothing can make you better, and that nothing can make you worse. That you're going to change, and you are going to change seamlessly from one perfect expression to the next perfect expression in an environment that is made perfectly for you and that you are made perfectly for. Perfection is not something you can escape other than to deny it and call it anything other than perfection. The only thing wrong with you is that you see something wrong with you. And then once you stop seeing something wrong with you, then the only thing wrong with you will be that anyone else sees something wrong with you. So you got to get over seeing yourself as wrong, and you also got to get over the fact that anyone that sees you that calls you wrong, they're just saying you're perfect anyway. And of course, you got to be able to look at everyone there, everyone all around you, and recognize their perfection, even though their perfection is completely different than the perfection that you express yourself in. And that you are no more privileged than anyone else. You just have different privileges. And they have different privileges than you do, based on the differences between you. And you would like for them to be able to reap the benefits of the privileges you enjoy, and you would like to be able to reap the benefits of the privileges they enjoy, as long as society will find a way to make that free. And you would like to keep people who privilege themselves, who have the audacity, and I do say audacity, to try to control you or control your environment based on the fact that they believe they know what's right for you or what's wrong for you. I feel we as a society do far too much of that, I feel that, yes, it's possible to be a victim. Yes, it is. And yes, as a victim, I would want to be cared for and healed and taken care of. But I also feel that as a victim, it does no good to victimize the cat that made me into a victim. I don't want to make somebody else into a victim. I'm already tight that they made me into a victim. What I want to know is what hurt them, what got them into the mindset that they felt they had to make a victim out of me. You know what I'm saying? You know, in Africa, when a cat would do some antisocial, violent stuff, there's one community where they would just go up to that cat and tell that cat all the beautiful, perfect things he's ever done, all the wonderful things he's being. Why would you reward somebody that does something wrong? Because the reason why they did something wrong is because they feel they weren't being rewarded. People know what right and wrong is to each other. People know when you are allowing someone the freedom to be free and when you are robbing them of their freedom to be free and happy and do what they want. You know what I'm saying? We all speak up for ourselves. Even if we don't, you can see it in somebody's face. You can see it in their actions. You can read the room. And if you can't read the room, well, then somebody should sit up and let you know. Communication is key. When somebody takes advantage of someone, we all suffer because we all lose trust in each other. Our society spends so much money, so much energy, so much pain on trying to prevent. The whole reason why we spend so much money on the military is because we're so afraid of being taken control of. But that's made us into an evil empire that is constantly menacing others that we're going to take control over them. And the truth is that nobody has control. All they do is keep freeing violence, keep multiplying violence. There's no way possible that organized violence can stop violence unless there's some other organized violence already occurring. If no other organized violence is occurring, organized violence is a control factor, a way of controlling people who are trying to express themselves. But as soon as you start expressing yourself through violence, people don't care anymore about what you were expressing. They just want to come at you with violence. And I mean, it's tragic to me. I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful that we as the United States fought Hitler. Because Hitler was doing organized violence against his people, separating part of his people from part of his people, making part of his people into basically the property of the state that had to work or die and will work until they die. Now, I know from coming up in a country that believes in that shit, that that's a horrible way to live. That's how African Americans came up in the United States in concentration camps. They call them plantations, but they were basically, 400 years of concentration camps. So I'm very happy that we fought Hitler because that one war proved that it wasn't in our human condition as Americans to appreciate someone that makes concentration camps for their own people. But yet to this day, we have jails that make concentration camps for our own people. To this day, we have ghettos that make economic concentration camps for our own people. I don't want to fight those poor victims of this concentration camp mentality by fighting a war. I don't want to fight the poor victims in Saudi Arabia who are being killed for their sexual their sexual identity. The Sudanese that are being sold as slaves. I don't want to go in there with the army to kill these people. But I do want to see these things end. How would they end if society doesn't allow them to happen? If we no longer feel that Black Sudanese are less than a Muslim, if we no longer feel that a gay Muslim should be killed by a straight Muslim, And that, when I say we, I'm just as Muslim as the next guy, just like I'm just as human as the next guy. Anyone could become Muslim, and anyone could leave Islam. All I'm trying to say, man, is that as culture soldiers, we want to provide freedoms for people, and we want to rob pain. And the biggest way of robbing pain is by questioning the whole concept of the knowledge of evil. How do you know what evil is? And how much is your knowledge of evil responsible for the pain you've caused others in your life? How much is their knowledge of evil responsible for the pain you've felt in your life? How much do you want to use your knowledge of evil to win an argument? How much do you want to use your knowledge of evil to make somebody else do what you want them to do? I'm sorry, I only have knowledge of goodness. I'm good, you're good, it's all good. Like I said, it's 8 o'clock. I've been going off for a minute. I'm gonna chill out. It doesn't seem like anybody's asking any questions. Nobody's got anything to say. Yo,
you're gonna leave? Don't leave.
I think I'm good for the evening, man. Nobody's got anything to say, my. Anybody texting you on Zoom? Nobody wants to say nothing. You could also text on Facebook. I'm looking at anybody who's got anything, any questions, any ideas. You know,
We're over here like just like closing our eyes, meditating on what you're saying. It's amazing. It's deeply profound. It's such thought for soul. Such food.
well, you know, I mean, I want to offer an option that's not on the table. And the offer is stop seeking perfection and be perfection. Recognize that in order for you to get to Nirvana, you have to bring everything to Nirvana, which including Trump and then suntan faith. Hey, Jill, I see you saying hi on Facebook. But yeah, it's 8. I'm feeling it.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Soul.
Sure. Yeah, feel free to contact me on Facebook, on Instagram, Soulzite365.
You know what? Jill just joined the meeting. Jill, have you been trying to get on this for a while?
No, we had to do some work on the farm. We just got back.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Soul.
Thank you, Saul.
Feel free to contact me on Facebook, on Instagram, Soulzite365.
You know what? Jill just joined the meeting. Maybe she's listening. Jill, have you been trying to get on this for a while?
No, we had to work out on the field.
Yeah, I see Jill and Hoke. Hey, Hoke, how you doing, man?
Good. I'm tired. I did a lot of rototilling today. I did a tremendous amount of work today.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful, man.
And that's why I didn't get back till sunset.
I ain't mad at you at all. You've been out there in the world.
No, we had to work out on the field.
What is
I don't know. Our voices are like in a loop.
Good. I'm tired. I did a lot of rototilling today. I did a tremendous amount.
So psychedelic.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That's why I didn't get back till sunset.
Oh, I see. Because we're in Gray Space and in Zoom.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
How's that?
Oh, there you go. Oh,
Yeah.
look at that.
Oh, wow.
Sorry. We're in our sound booth.
What is it that you said, Soul? History doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does.
It sure does rhyme.
Yeah.
Sometimes it echoes.
So my whole body hurts. I've been busting my ass all fucking day. I haven't worked hard like this in a while, so I'm getting back into it.
I know you're enjoying it, man. Life is good.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
enjoys it.
what else am I gonna do during the apocalypse, right? Fucking garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring a truckload of cucumbers down this summer.
Yeah, we have to feed everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next dinner party, 6 feet apart.
Right.
Yeah.
How did I get in video? Did I just silence everyone?
I don't do.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
But Solo, it was nice. I caught the last bit of your rap and sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hulk. I actually began the session thinking about you because
Right.
you were writing on Facebook earlier today that the belief in God is like a really silly idea to you.
Oh, did you write that?
Oh yeah, I wrote some. I've been getting some reactions from people. Well, I'm just saying that the virus doesn't care about us. It's like, and nature like this whole idea that we have dominion over nature is just nonsense, right? And like we're just another animal living in nature, and if all these other things conspire and like kill all the humans, the fucking planet doesn't give a shit. That we're just going to compost and and everything else will be fine. It's like we have this idea that the planet needs to have us.
No, in like 10 million years, we're just going to be like the same thing as chickens. There's going to be like little tiny humans that are, like the only leftover equivalent of dinosaurs roaming around. Like the next smart thing eats.
Might find us. And be like, oh, this is an interesting, subject of study to like base my academic career on.
Well, so, I tell you, I look at humanity. I look at life itself. For one, I identify with life. I also identify with being a human. To me, they're all concentric circles, Humanity exists in life. Life exists in the time and space. I look at Bob Marley when he says, don't worry about nuclear energy. Nobody's going to stop the time. I truly feel that I am the current expression of energy that has been here since before I was born. And before I was born, I actually existed somewhere. My whole life, from conception all the way to death, existed before time gave expression to me.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, I am as old as the time that is expressing me. So, yes, I'm a 50-year-old man. However, the soul that I am expressing is 14 billion years old. Just like the words coming out my mouth are much older than me as a 50-year-old man.
Right.
Air coming out of my mouth has hydrogen in it that is vibrating and getting to you, giving you the knowledge of what I'm saying. All of the things that we're speaking through are all things that started their existence more than 10 billion years ago. So everything that's speaking, including the ideas I have in my head that I'm trying to share with you, are all much older than me, even though they are also directly me, this 50-year-old who's speaking them. The fact is that is what God is. God is how our reality works, how it expresses itself in the present, even though it's been the only thing here and will continue to be the only thing here throughout all of time and space. So you have a bit of a sarcastic stance on things. Your humor is based on a certain kind of cynicism, on a certain type of skepticism. Okay. That, hey, we're not as great as we think we are.
Right.
But my point is that not only is we are as great as we think we are, but instead of saying that we're not as great, I'm saying all the things that we think are not as great as us are just as great as us. are just as perfect as us. I'm saying that our 50-year-old soul is just as important, just as great as a roach's whole lineage going back 350 million years, and the singular roach in front of me, as the dust in front of me that seems completely unimportant, unvaluable, is made of the same material I'm made of.
Yeah.
The same history I have. Just a different perspective on that history, a different perspective on what's important to it and what's not important to it than I do. That's the thing that I'm speaking about with the souls. That souls are all created by other souls that they are made of. The souls they're made of are always older than the souls they express. The more souls come together to express a soul, the shorter it will live, the more complex the workings, information makes it so that the soul's life is full of information. And I feel that's what separates us from matter. Matter is full of information too, but it's not as dense as the information that's stored in life.
Right.
Storing that kind of dense information, matter can't continuously store it throughout all the presents that are coming, because the presents that are coming are going to eradicate the environment that made it possible for all this information to be stored. For 14 billion years, this world has been going through environmental changes. And for 14 billion years, life has been able to change because it has died and reinvented itself with the changes that happen around us.
Yeah.
If we stayed the same, we would not have survived, because we would have ate all the resources that single cell life depended on and never have spread, never have done any of the things we needed to do, and those resources would be spent and we would have died. It is because we are constantly improvising on theme. It's because every moment, all the time and space itself is improvising on theme, changing. And those changes all happen to all of us, and we all move with the same direction. And therefore, when you take something from this time and put it back 10 million years ago, it has no chance of survival. And when you take something from 10 million years ago and bring it here, it has no chance of survival, because here is not here anymore.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So basically, our whole notion of something being less than is what I call the myth. You call the myth the whole notion of something being better than. And I agree with you. There's no getting better than anything. I just feel we are all simply the best. And there's nothing to be skeptical about except for the people who believe they're better than the best. You know what I'm saying?
I'll maybe what I wrote was a rough draft.
No. I'm not trying to control you. I'm not trying to.
No, but you're giving me good insight and things to think about.
My intent is not to control you or to tell you the truth or to tell you what to believe or to tell you something that's better than what you already know. I believe, for one, that it's impossible to teach anybody anything. Everybody already has all of it within themselves, and all you can do is introduce them slowly to information that brings them to focus on places in their soul they hadn't focused on before. And when they focus on those places, that's when learning starts. But you don't learn from me. You learn on focusing on you. You learn by focusing on what you already know, what you already see to be true for yourself. You know what I'm saying?
I like it.
So basically, all I can do really is not teach, but inspire your focus on what you already know within your own soul. And by inspiring that focus, you now are focusing on something that you can now express as being something that you see, something you believe. But the fact of the matter is that no one else can actually see or know what you actually believe. All they can do now is now hear what you have to say and be inspired to focus on what is true in their soul. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what's really important to me with Soul School is not so much to teach new information. What's really important for me in Soul School is to offer an opportunity where people can focus on parts of their soul they haven't focused on. You know what I'm saying? And the part of your soul I'd like you to focus on, if you're open to it, is the part of you that recognizes the beauty and the perfection of things and try to spread that to the places you think are less than perfect and less than beautiful as much as possible. And see if you can look at something that you felt was not beautiful or perfect and see if you can creatively find a way to look at that thing as not only being beautiful and perfect, but being beautiful and perfect specifically and personally created for you.
Huh. What?
Wow. Yeah.
Finding something that's not beautiful and perfect and looking at it and realizing that it's something beautiful created just for you.
I truly feel that the only reason why we exist is because we are being given creation by ourselves who have created everything, but want everything to have its own specific person. You know how they talk about a personal relationship with Christ?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a personal relationship with reality. I'm saying that reality is something that was personally created for you, specifically, and that every single experience you've ever had and everything you've ever seen was made specifically and personally for you at the time and the moment in which you saw it, to give you the insights and perspectives that you have today, and that is a process that is continuing right now and will forever continue as long as you experience the present, the gift of God, which is everything that is happening right now, as everything that is happening right now pulls away into the past, as everything that is happening right now pulls into the present. That the future is your gift and the past is how you opened it.
Yeah.
I know. I preach. I can't help myself, but at least there's no fire and brimstone. I mean, if there is, at least we're all cooking soul food together and having a party in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I don't do the fire and brimstone thing.
Right.
We're organic.
I tell you, man, when something's popping, something's popping. You never know what you're doing, but God bless us, we have not experienced much fire and brimstone. So, you know, it's such a blessing to be alive.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. I tell you, it's really easy these days to see it as being a blessing to be alive, even with so much difficulty and so much death. You got to acknowledge these are incredible times. And, you know, if you're going to die anywhere, I'd want to be dying sometimes around now.
Checking out.
So,
Yeah.
well, who knows what kind of gifts not being able to express yourself directly in time and space gives you, you know? I know that I had to have been really gifted to line it up so that I got to exist at all. So, you know, I doubt that I did all that work arranging my parents and their parents and their parents specifically, and with precision, making sure that that one sperm hit that one ovum that made it possible for me to consume this 50 years of motherfucking paradise. You know what I'm saying? you know,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like I robbed the bank already. If I lose all consciousness and never get to experience another moment again, I'm the richest man that I've ever conceived of. you know, so the bottom line is from one winner to another winner in this incredible lottery that we call the present. You know what I'm saying? I won enough to lose it. I won enough to lose it and still be a winner. But I do tend to feel that it's impossible to lose this shit. I do tend to feel that, you know, perfection is just immaculate, and that the imagination is a true realm. And if it is a true realm, then it's the realm that each one of us own wholeheartedly to ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And there's no proof yet that there's life after death, but there's no proof yet that there isn't imagination after life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
That's nice. I like that.
it is what it is. You know?
Nice.
All right, y'all. It's late enough.
Yeah, man.
Nice talking with y'all. Peace out.
Love you, soul.
Ciao, soul.
Love you, soul.
Love you all too. Enough respect.
Over and out.